Let's get right into it. This is old school versus new school ways of determining value and ordering your product backlog. Let's start off with old school. Pragmatic Marketing has a great screenshot on their website that describes the steps that a product owner would go through in the old world. It starts here way on the left side with understanding the market, and then goes all the way to the right side where you're supporting sales and the product. So incredibly, you see that nowhere on here is there a close interaction between the development team and the product owner on actually developing the product. All of this is thinking in a room, planning, doing marketing surveys, looking at research. There isn't a close, intimate relationship among the product owner, the customer, and the development team. Now, this might be what your product development process looks like at your work, in which case I encourage you to take a look at this model because it does a great job of describing the old school world. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the first few segments here, market, focus, business, planning, and just pick out a few things and share with you what they mean. So let's start off with market. Market problems. Interviewing customers often through surveys. One of the characteristics of old school is that we do a lot of talking and not a lot of prototyping or testing. In the new school world, we don't do surveys by and large, whereas in the old school world, we do lots of surveys. A second box here in market is to identify the strengths and weaknesses of competitors and alternatives and position your product so that it does something that's better or different. A third component is to assess your strengths. What is your company good at? What is your company bad at? You can recognize all of this as MBA type of thinking. How about focus? Distribution strategy. Once you have a product, how are you going to sell it? How are you going to get it to the customer? Determine the channels. The product portfolio. You might already have products in this space. How do they all work together? And how do you manage products so that they're simple and easy to understand from the customer's perspective? And then the product roadmap. You're going to develop the product. There are going to be various phases. Different features will be released at the end of every phase. That's the product roadmap. The business itself, the business model, pricing. Decide how you price the product by doing an analysis of the market. Is the market elastic or inelastic? Buy, build, or partner. Decide on whether you want to buy components of the strategy or build it yourself or do something in between by partnering with someone who has part of the solution. How about planning? So this is an exact quote from the Pragmatic Marketing website where it talks about position. It says, create internal positioning documents. And this really captures the philosophy and the approach of the old school method. It's all about doing internal work inside of the building, not a lot of contact with the customer. And it's also a lot about documents. Let's go through this process, this methodology. Let's check off these boxes and make sure that internal stakeholders have what they need to write the $10 million check to develop the product. User personas. That's something that we use in the new school world, but this is done in a very heavy-handed way without having a feedback loop. Thirdly, stakeholder communication. We've convinced all of these stakeholders to write us a $10 million check. How are we going to tell them the progress of the product? So that's the old school approach.